No, this is honestly, and I'm not making this up, this is the first time I've actually watched the movie with an audience since the first time we screened the whole way through. You kind of burn out on seeing it, and I just got a good vibe from you guys, and this is a little kiss-assy, but so I stayed the whole time. I usually like skedaddle right away, so this has really been wonderful that you all came out, and thank you so much. And now, if you want to ask questions, I guess.
Can you just tell us the journey? What influenced it?
I mean, you know, the oldest advice you can give a writer is write what you know, and essentially the character Miller is very much based on me. I mean, and all the characters are based on people I knew or know, and you know, as you write and as you cast and as you go through the process, they become something else and it changes. But the character of Miller is still very much me, and I was very much protective of casting Patrick J. Adams because I had this affinity with him, and so, am I answering the question slowly or roundabout? Anyway, so yeah, this is kind of a story about my life in Reno, Nevada, and I'm sure you've all been there. Yeah. Ryan. And it could be any small town. I mean, it's about sort of like being stuck in a rut and sort of having that stasis where you don't know what to do with your life. You got relationships, people you love, you care about, but they're messy and imperfect. Reno is a drinking town, and I fell very comfortably into that. And unfortunately, you know, it's not a positive thing all the time, and so you kind of learn and grow, and I want to turn that into something positive and tell the story and sort of help spark potentially a career in Hollywood. So I can make dinosaur movies, which is what my son wants. So. Other questions? Yes?
How do you cast? I mean, how do you get these, I mean, a lot of these people were recognizable to participate in it?
Well, casting, you know, when we had a budget, and there's a lot of things you can spend money on a movie. You can throw money at a lot of different things, and casting was always going to be the most important thing for my producing partner, Daniel Minahan, who is unfortunately like 30 miles away from us, but couldn't be here. Ironically, he doesn't live here, but. And so, you know, when we brought on the director Eli, you know, we all had sort of the same thing. It's like, you know, if we were going to sell this movie, we were going to sell it on the actors, and we were going to do open casting calls, but we ended up bringing in a casting director who was awesome, and he saw like 1,000 people, and then we saw like hundreds of people, and we just really, you know, sat down and watched everybody, and we didn't care if they were named. We had some names, you know, people who'd been in TV.
Yeah, we recognized the
But people who were like bigger TV than these guys even, that like want to do independent movies, were like, they were not right for the roles. So our thing was, are you right for the roles? And that was most important. And it was a long process, and we didn't have a rehearsal time. It was basically, the casting process was the rehearsal time, because we spent so much time. By the time we casted, like Patrick came on like 3 days before we started shooting. Like we booked him finally, and you know, a lot of it's serendipity. So,
how did you finance it?
I hate this question because you know, I can go back to the flattery to charm the audience a little bit. I mean, the hardest part of making a movie I always thought was financing, which is certainly very challenging, and you know, the harder part's getting people to come and watch it and enjoy it, even if you're proud of it. But no, I was lucky that my producing partner had money and you know, we'd been friends since college, and he loved the script, and he always said we were going to do it, and we talked about it forever, and it was like one of those things that never happened, but it's fun to talk about, like Dream, like, you know, crashing Ferraris into each other, whatever you want to talk about. And one day he's like, called me, he's like, I'm ready to do this, I'm serious, I have the money, let's do it. And I was like, great. You know, waiting for the other shoe to drop, like the buts or the ifs, and it happened that, no, he was serious, and we did it, and that's the end product. But like even now, when we look to, we've got another project ready to go, and you know, money's a big issue, and the next project, we want to kind of fix and improve on some of the things that we weren't able to do in this movie, and that's going to require more money. I mean, money helps make movies get made, so it'll be challenging. And so we were very fortunate, though.
How long did the whole thing take to shoot?
12 days. It was, I mean, the whole process was basically my partner and I saying, we're crazy and we want to do this a certain way, and everybody who had had experience making movies saying, you're crazy, you can't do it that way. They didn't want to shoot on location, they didn't want, they were like, you need to spend that money here, here, and here. And we said no. And so our line producer, who manages sort of the finances and budgets everything, said, well, then your days are going to go here, here, here. And yeah, we just worked it out that we could do it. But it was literally, if we made one mistake, the movie would be dead. I mean, and there was a day where the camera stopped working, and we're in Reno, which doesn't have any of the equipment. And so if we weren't able to fix the problem, we would have been done, and that we would have lost that day, and we would have had no way to make up that day. And a friend of my producing partner, Dan, pulled apart a computer to find a part to fix the camera. And you hear these stories, and you're like, that really does happen. I mean, we would have been doomed. So.
How much changing of the script did you have to do because of the time change?
I mean, not too much. Most of the script changing, thankfully, was me just thinking, this is terrible, I want to rewrite it. And that was a long process before we went to shoot. There was supposed to be a scene where the wedding that's referenced at the beginning of the movie, we were going to actually film that, and it was going to be this big comedic, set piece. And we just couldn't do it. There was just no way when we looked at our schedule and our budget that we could justify trying to put together a wedding scene. So there were small, that was probably the biggest example of a change we had to make for finance. But other than that, the script was shot as is, luckily for me. And that's my advice to writers, by the way. Also be a producer, because you get a lot of control. And so the director, Eli, bless his heart, he'd be like, what about this? And I'd be like, do you want the writer hat or the producer hat? If I put on the producer hat, you're going to do what I say. The writer might talk to you about it a little bit. So.
Where do you go next, and how do you get the movie seen by people?
Well, this is honestly probably one of the best experiences I could have showing the movie, to an audience. And we want to continue doing that. Luckily, I guess I can say now officially that we did sign a deal yesterday for official distribution. It's a small company, but they're a cool company, and we're, there's so many things you think are going to happen in terms of where the movie's going to go and what your potentials are, and then it doesn't happen. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. It's hard enough getting a movie made, but like I said earlier, getting people to see it, and especially people who, when you do show it, people tend to respond positively. You're like, well, I want everybody who's going to like it to see it. So, but if I could, I would put it on the back of a trailer and drive across this country and show it to whoever. It's a lot of work. We don't have, the marketing machines of the studios, which are, it's expensive to get people to know about your movie. So, like doing something like this is fantastic. This is like a dream come true, to be able to come someplace beyond where the movie was shot and show it to people who otherwise would not have heard of it. So.